one morning in a meditation, I actually got contacted by the Merlins, and they laid out the plan, the initial plan, the initial sites that we were going to visit. Before the trip, I started to be guided by one of my ancestors, which is called Blue River, and he was showing me how to do drumming ceremonies, how to connect with the direction and do drumming ceremonies. And when I drum, I also chant, and the chant goes with the energy that is required in the moment. So we started the initial itinerary by visiting 12 sites across the UK and Scotland, but we ended up visiting 25 sites. So once we got there, we started having a bunch of downloads. I was basically channeling every day, getting the downloads of what was the next thing, what we needed to do on that site, because we didn't know what we needed to do there. We just knew we were there, we were going. That's the only thing we knew. So this was a wild adventure that I never lived in my life before, trusting that the next clue is going to show up. What we received on that day was to actually connect with each and every stone standing, and to deeply connect with it and receive the energy and or give energy. So it was really internal alchemy, feeling what's needed with that specific rock here. Do I need to give? Do I need to receive? So it was literally like getting in an internal dialogue energetically with the rock. And it took us 5 hours. I was in meditation, and then my guide's telling me, welcome to this place. Thank you for coming. You're here to do a drumming ceremony. And I'm seeing all these people there. And then my parts kicks in, like you're not going to do a ceremony here. Like you cannot like disturb all these people. It's Sunday. They need to chill, like all this dialogue. And then my ancestors were like on the other side saying, you didn't come here to back out. You came here to do what you need to do. And this is what you're meant to do. This is destiny. So you have to do it. I started channeling the Druids at that specific place, and we were asked to sit in a triangle formation to do that ceremony. So I channeled the Druids, and they actually started making us doing internal alchemy. So they asked us to connect our hearts. I personally found that connecting with my heart and focusing in the middle of my heart and breathing deeply in a space of Wuji, in a space of stillness, and just bringing my attention there and breathing and relaxing within that space is actually how I'm receiving the best guidance. This is how I'm being contacted by my ancestors, by other types of consciousness out there. And the more I do that, the more I become one with everything.
Greetings and good day. This is The Channeled Truth. I'm your host, Thomas Leihart, and I'm a channeler myself, and I love exploring the works of Seth and Jane Roberts, Abraham Hicks, and Bashar. And with me today, I have a very special guest that is returning for the 4th time, and he is a phenomenal holistic leadership coach, and he's expanding some fantastic abilities into working with sacred sites and literally just channeling the energy and letting it work through him in order to reactivate these sacred sites and reconnect the grid, right? So without further ado, I'll let him explain what he does in detail. Let's bring Jean-François onto our digital stage. Jean-François, thanks so much for coming back and telling us about your exciting adventures.
Thank you so much, Tom, for having me back on the show. I was really excited when we talked about making an episode out of the trip that I just went through in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, so let's just dive right into it. So I understand you've recently came back from a trip working with sacred sites. So do you want to just give us a little background or tell us in whatever exciting way speaks to you?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's important to state the fact that this trip was actually something that was in the making last year and actually had so many synchronicities that led me into organizing this trip in the UK, so in England and Scotland, to visit many stone circles and other sacred sites. Um, but at the beginning, uh, we actually did not know the whole itinerary that we were going to be on. We actually had only a few places that were pointed to us by the Merlins, and which the Merlins, if we could say it right now for people who might not be familiar, it's the Merlins is a lineage of internal alchemist and magician, and the Merlins. The way I've got in contact with them was actually because of Matthias Di Stefano, that maybe a few of the viewers know that this guy, Matthias, remembers his past life and was actually guided to go to Scotland by the Merlins contacting him a few years down the road. I think it was something like 2014 or 2012. I'm not really exactly sure. But when I heard him speak about the Merlins, it ignites something in me when I actually knew that Scotland was on the radar. So one morning in a meditation, I actually got contacted by the Merlins, and they laid out the plan, the initial plan, the initial sites that we were going to visit. So this is how it started back in November 2023, and we had the information that we were going to go in 2024. All these bits and pieces of information kind of came in during the beginning of 2024. And in March, we finally had, okay, it's going to be in the summer. And then after that, in April, we actually got the dates. It's going to be from the July 20th to August 4th, really precise. We're like, oh, that's interesting. These dates, really interesting. And then we started like, okay, let's book the trip there. Let's reserve our plane ticket. And then I think a week after we got the date, Matthias Di Stefano got out a new series on Gaia, which is called Journey of Remembering Season 2. And his whole Season 2 is about his trip to Scotland and the UK that he did last year with a group. And you'll be freaked out on that one. The dates were exactly the same as us.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I was like, what? Exactly the same as us, but I didn't knew prior to watching this thing. We got that like a week earlier.
Wow, it just reminds me of how this work, when one brings it, it's like a chain reaction, like a chemical reaction or chain reaction, like a viral, situation. It just spreads like wildfire. You're inspired by DeStefano, you're acting, and as you're doing your thing, you're going to inspire other people and they're going to inspire other people. And we're just collectively just waking up, giving ourselves, each other permission to be, to step into these roles that's more of who we are.
Yeah, yeah, I strongly agree with that, and this is one of the reasons why I feel it's so important to do this episode. And I thank you for your service of making these up, putting these up, because it's a lot of your time that you're dedicating into doing that and bringing that to the world.
Yeah, no, it's a labor of love. Even when it feels like it's not going anywhere, it's like I just keep getting how important it is. Just keep going, and we'll see where it goes. But it's already starting to open up some exciting doorways I can see.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about labor of love, this whole trip was about labor of love and following our passion, excitement, and following our calling. And this trip was actually initially um, started with my connection, if some of the viewers remember, we did an episode on Chichen Itza in 2024 after I visited the site, and I was connecting with the Mayans and they showed me how to do harmonization on their site, and they actually did a energy upgrade in me when I was on that site. Which actually led to another trip in Mexico last April when I did another harmonization in Tulum and also connected with the Mayans there. So this was kind of my training into going into Scotland and the England side to do the same and go further actually along the way. So what was shown to me in April was how to prepare for this trip was to actually, I'm drumming, I'm doing shamanic drumming, and this is something that I've started doing in October 2022. And since then, I had a bunch of guidance coming to me and the connection with my ancestors from natives in Quebec here. And they've been guiding me on opening up back to the lineage and doing certain rituals. And what happened before the trip, I started to be guided by one of my ancestors, which is called Blue River. And he was showing me how to do drumming ceremonies, how to connect with the direction and do drumming ceremonies. And when I drum, I also chant. And the chant goes with the energy that is required in the moment. So I started in April to actually play the drum, but in a way that I never played the drum before. And really long session, like playing the drum for 30 minutes, 35 minutes, facing the direction, chanting, saying different prayers that was given to me. And I was like, what's going on? Why am I doing that? why am I doing that? Because at the moment, the guidance was not like, oh, you need to do that because of the trip. It was just, no, you need to do that. It was not clear. It was just a clue, a piece of information. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to do it, if this is what I need to do, and have the faith and trust in that ancestor to cultivate that energy and that skill. Remember what was buried inside of me, basically. And as I played more and more and more, I started letting myself in the groove of it, letting myself really be fluid. At the beginning was kind of like a little bit weird, if we could say it that way. It was new, it was not familiar, uncomfortable. But the more I played, the more I became comfortable and the more I became one with the drum. And at some point before the trip, maybe a month before the trip, I was really feeling one with the drum, really feeling that this was what I've been training for. And a month before, I knew this is what's going to happen in the UK. We're going to do some ceremonies with the drum, which is what happened when we were there. But I understood why, because one of the ceremonies we've done at Callanish Stone Circle on Isle of Lewis in Scotland, probably I played the drum for 45, 50 minutes straight. And really, really hard. Yeah, really intense, really intense. Yeah. But I needed to train before. It's physically exhausting to do that.
Yeah, it's just, I know the viewers are going to really appreciate this. Oftentimes we get guidance and we just get one piece of it, like one piece of the puzzle. And we're like, well, logically, how does that even play in? Like, why am I being inspired to do this thing? How does this link up to my path? I'm a holistic coach. Why am I drumming, right? But
yeah, exactly.
It's like you trust it, right? You develop that skill, and then later you start seeing the other puzzle pieces start to emerge, and you start realizing, oh, it fits into this, right? But if you let your logical mind talk you out of it, of like, hey, how is this relevant? I ain't got time for that, right? You miss a doorway, right? So the encouragement always is trust those impulses, trust that inspiration that comes, do that thing, because you have no idea how it's going to link into everything else that's opening up for you.
And on that, like, I'd like to say to the viewers, one way that I know when I'm doing the right thing in alignment with my energy is my heart is opening. When I
Yeah.
play the drum, my heart is opening, energy goes and flow. Even though I have parts of me that are like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You know, like they're trying to sidetrack this energy that wants to come through me. But my heart is open, my body is grounded. I feel that I'm doing the right thing, even though I have some parts of me that are activated, and my ego kind of like resists this new energy that is taking over.
Yeah, I'm glad you speak to that because so often these new movements come with this joyful, excited energy, heart opening, but also the quality of like we're stretching. You used the word weird earlier, right? It's like it feels a little awkward, a little bit weird, or you used the word uncomfortable, right? It's like you were getting stretched, and those other portions of the personality that have been trained to like keep us safe, keep us from looking too bizarre, right? They're trying to say, hey, wait, don't go out too far out into the unknown, right? So it's working with all of that and integrating all that and honoring the resistance and honoring the inspiration and really just bringing it together and not fighting ourselves, but just joyfully bringing all these parts up to speed, which is something I understand you're actually quite gifted at.
Yeah, and I understand why I've been directed to do parts work, because this was necessary for me to actually deal with these parts and harmonize them together and listen to them and have compassion. So when I get to this next level, which I'm in right now, I can actually play and talk to them really easily, and they kind of trust the inner guidance that I have, because I've done so many of this parts work and talking with these protective mechanism and unburdening intergenerational trauma that I've done extensively in 2023. So now I'm seeing how all of this was necessary. But when I was in it in 2023, I was like, what's going on? I've been unburdening intergenerational lineage for 6 months now. I'm exhausted. I want to get out of here. But I felt that it was what was needed at the time, even though it was uncomfortable. It was pain in my body. I was not sleeping. I was waking up. I had like all kinds of discomfort during that time. But this was the training, this was the preparation.
Yeah, I'm glad you speak to that because, expansion comes with that stretching, and we get skilled in working through that and not letting it like really throw us off kilter too much, right? But
Yeah.
it's I'm embracing that more and more. It's like, okay, today in meditation we're diving into, how small I feel or how insignificant I feel or unworthy, right? Let's unlock from some of this so that I can rise even higher in consciousness, right? And then you expand and then you hit more stuck points, right? Or parts that are kind of freaking out and oh wait, I'm not worthy, right? And so you embrace it, right? You don't no longer there's no longer that resistance of oh no, I don't want to go deal with that, right? It's like okay, today we're embracing these parts, right? That need to be brought up to speed because we're getting an upgrade, right? A major upgrade. And the upgrades now, it's like they're coming fast and furious, man. So it's like
Oh
we got
yeah.
to streamline that process of really embracing all the resistance and transforming through that through love, right? It comes back to self-love and trust.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you said it. Self-love and trust, and it's all about giving ourselves what we need so we feel secure, we feel safe inside of ourselves, and then we can expand and really open our heart to give and receive. But if there's no safety inside of the system, it's really tough to have your heart open, because you're going to get wounded. Like there's this fear of like, oh, I'm going to get wounded again. I don't want that to happen, so I'm closing my heart.
Yep, the triggers, totally. And can you speak a little bit to also to trust? Because this is another aspect. First of all, this trip, like literally you got the whole download for the trip this year, right, in April, and you had no itinerary and you channeled the itinerary, right? So I find that just fabulous and exciting.
Yeah, that was quite something, you know. But again, let's like I had a bunch of parts saying like, "What's going on?" You know, like You're gonna get there. You're not gonna know what to do. I had those parts trying to discourage me of going. They try to pull all their tricks up their sleeve. To try to discourage me. But I had to reframe a bunch of them and saying like, "Wait a second, just trust me here. I'm gonna connect to it, and everything is gonna be fine. I'm not being led in that direction for no reason to end up in a dead end. Like there's something at the end of that. All my lineage is behind that." And they're supporting me. So yeah, I got the download of, okay, what are the sites that we're going to go, so we can actually reserve the Airbnb and the hotels, so we know where we sleep, because it was 15 days. It's a lot of movement. So we started the initial itinerary by visiting 12 sites across the UK and Scotland, but we ended up visiting 25 sites. So once we got there, we started having a bunch of downloads. I was basically channeling every day, getting the downloads of what was the next thing, what we needed to do on that site, because we didn't know what we needed to do there. We just knew we were there, we were going. That's the only thing we knew. So this was a wild adventure that I never lived in my life before, trusting that the next clue is going to show up at the right time.
That's so fabulous. It's like, to me, I'm getting this image of like you're stepping into this altered state where literally you're no longer on the same physical vibration. It's like you're kind of mingling with the astral plane almost, and your experience becomes more dreamlike, and things just synchronistically show up like the way they would in a lucid dream. It's like, oh, I'm going here, and you meet the right person or you get the right hit to go to a certain sacred site. And 20 some sites in 15 days. I mean, we're talking about you're just a lot of movement in there.
Oh yeah, we drove about 1,800 miles during these 2 weeks, plus 2 islands that we visited.
Right.
So taking ferries and coming back.
So, speaking of all those sacred sites, is there one or two experiences that just really stands out as, something fantastic happened? Like, do you want to expand onto that?
Yeah, talking about synchronicities and clues showing up, like when the journey started, we started in Avebury Stone Circle, which is the largest stone circle in the world. There's actually a village built in the middle of the stone circle. So that was pretty wild, that experience. Like there's so many stones, so many big standing stones that are creating that circle. And what we received on that day was to actually connect with each and every stone standing, and to deeply connect with it and receive the energy or give energy. So it was really internal alchemy, feeling what's needed with that specific rock here. Do I need to give? Do I need to receive? So it was literally like getting in an internal dialogue energetically with the rock. And it took us 5 hours. So we really literally got off the plane, rented the car, went to that space, and spent 5 hours doing that on jet lag, having slept 2 hours in the plane, not even.
Dang, you know what? I get this image of like a circuit board with all these knobs. It's like, and they're all arranged in circles, right? Concentric circles or whatnot. And you're coming up to each stone. It's like you're turning the knob a little bit. Like it's like you're tuning that
Yeah.
sacred site, and it's tuning you, of course, too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. It was like the first initiation. The guys were like, "We'll see if you guys are really up for this challenge. We'll send you to the largest one, and you'll have to touch each stone, and you can't leave one. You have to attend to all of them."
Nice. So were you getting like some communications, or I know part of it was like receiving downloads, part of it is I'm sure your drumming was part of the whole resynchronization setup.
So there was no drumming on that
Mm.
specific one. It was for us three, me and my two friends, to sync up together and to sync up with the land, sync up with the energy of the stone themselves, sync up with nature. Uh, One thing that we have to mention for people who've never been on these sites, there are animals on these sites. There are sheep, there are goats, there are cows, bulls, and they're just like roaming around. So the connection with the animals as well, they're keepers of the land, they're always there, so connecting with their energy, and like you're kind of the foreigner walking on their land, and um, I remember the first day I was asking the sheep like to give me permission to be there. I'm walking on their land, and they were like lying down in front of uh, a big tree, and just that they looked like they were keeping the energy there. So that was really impressive, and we knew right away that this was the preparation for the next day, which was Stonehenge. So we were going to Stonehenge as we were going to Glastonbury. Um, so Glastonbury is a magical site with a tour on it, with a building on the top of the hill there, and that's a funny story. We were supposed to actually go to Stonehenge in the morning and then go to Glastonbury in the afternoon, but we actually forgot to book our ticket to Stonehenge, and we got the next morning and there was no more space to go there in the morning, so we had to go in the afternoon. So we ended up going to Glastonbury first because of that. But this was so synchronous because we got there and it was a bunch of people. It was a Sunday. It was a super windy day, kind of like partially cloudy, partially sunny. And then I remember sitting there facing the east direction. I was in meditation, and then my guide's telling me, "Welcome to this place. Thank you for coming. You're here to do a drumming ceremony." And I'm seeing all these people there, and then my parts kicks in, like you're not gonna do a ceremony here. Like you cannot like disturb all these people. It's Sunday. They need to chill. Like all this dialogue, and then my ancestors were like on the other side saying, you didn't come here to back out. You came here to do what you need to do. And this is what you're meant to do. This is destiny. So you have to do it. So I had and this was really like kind of firm, but like kind at the same time. Like they were firm with me. They were like, this is why you're here. So I got in my two friends and I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do drumming facing the direction, and then we're going to finish in the tour. And the tour is actually a building that's open inside, and you see the sky in the middle. So I said, you know what? Let's do it. Get the drum out, get this ready, started the drumming. And this was so intense because my mind didn't want it to do that at all. But my heart and body were like, we're doing this. So we started doing that, started chanting. My body was like literally trembling of doing that, and like playing hard, and doing the four directions. And then before we got into the tour, there was a guy that was standing by the door, and he looked at me and he says, "Thanks for your drumming, brother." And he kind of like welcomed us in. And I got into the building there, the tour, and we'll put an image in the video because we were actually graced with someone on the site that filmed it and posted on Instagram. So we actually, the only video we have from our ceremony is that person that filmed us that we don't know.
I'd love to get that clip, and maybe we can show it in here.
Yeah, we'll get that clip, and you'll see the guy on the clip. And then I got into the building, and there's a woman seated right in front of me, dressed like angelic like, with a tattoo here in her neck of some sort of sacred geometry. Right away I was like, wow, these people are there at the same time as we're here. This is major synchronicity. These are our guides that are telling us like, thanks for being here, thanks for doing this work. And I actually finished the drumming, and when I finished, I sat right in front of her, and she looked at me and she bowed to me and she said, "Thank you." So that, I have chills just like talking about it. Like that was the first one we've done, and So we had to actually miss the ticket for Stonehenge to go there to actually meet these people and being validated. And when we got out of the building on the other side, the guy who welcomed us in was actually waiting on the other side. And he said, "Thank you again," gave us a big hug. And there's a lady that came to me after and said, "Thank you so much for playing the drum. I was climbing up the hill," because it's on a hill, it can be like quite a strenuous for some people to climb up there. And the woman said, "Thank you for playing the drum, because I was getting so tired as I was climbing up. And then I heard you play, and it gave me strength to move up and come up to the hill."
Just full of magic, man. I don't even know where to begin. It's just, you're
Yeah, that was the second day, I was like, okay, that's the opening ceremony, basically.
dang. That first one, I felt like part of it was helping you guys to ground into England and the UK's energy field, even like the way you're harmonizing with the animals, but of course to a new time zone, right? To everything, right? So that
Yeah.
was like that. It was actually giving you a fine tuning as much as you were tuning that space, and that, yeah, you just took off from there. It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. So that gave us like, okay, this is why we're here. This was like a snippet of what was the rest of these days are going to were going to be.
And then
And
it's like you just gotta roll with the punches, right? To use a funny expression, but it's like you missed that ticket, right? And just trust, trusting that flow. It's all like just trusting there's a reason. And it's like those people you were so embarrassed in front of, actually on some other level, you guys were all there at the same time for a reason, right?
exactly. That's what my guides told me after. They said, everywhere you're going to go where there is people, these people need to witness what it is to do sacred ceremony, what it is to bring back the sacred on the land. They need to witness that. So this is your mission.
Yeah, I feel that, like I'm really feeling it, like, and vibrating with that. That's just powerful. And so many times in our lives, we're called to do things, and I just love how you describe that, the resistance, right? It's like, you want me to do what? You know what I mean? But you just gotta trust it, and break through that, in a loving way, right? You're not forcing yourself. You're embracing and acknowledging those parts, but also saying, hey, we got to do this. It's time, right? It's that famous expression I like. You're never really ready. It just becomes your turn.
Yeah, totally. It just becomes your turn. Exactly. I love that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
steal it from you.
That's actually from a rodeo guy, a Texas rodeo guy. But hey, it's so applicable in so many ways, in so many dimensions.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And I remember it was so windy also on that specific day at Glastonbury, and I was actually drawing energy from the wind, being nurtured from the strength of the wind to move on and do this ceremony. I was in unity with the wind and the elements there.
Yeah, it's no, we have that expression, whispers of the wind, right? Whispers in the wind, like they are connecting to the elements. So, do you want to speak a little bit about? So, three of you went. You're one of the three. Perhaps about the importance of the triad, or how that was playing out in the ceremonies.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that was also a specific instruction before the trip is only the three of you can go. No other people. And like I had some friends that were interested, oh, you go to Scotland, that like they wanted to be part of it, but they weren't meant to be part of it. So it was really, the instruction were clear. Only you and your two friends need to do this together. So I kind of knew that something was up with that. And it became clear why we needed to be three people 3 days in the trip when we went into a site called Brimham Rocks, which are rock formation of 320 million years ago. So pretty old rock formation, pretty stunning. We'll put some video also, put some pictures in this video so people can see what we're talking about. It's pretty magical just to be there among those rocks and connecting with these the wisdom that these rocks are carrying also. And we've been instructed to actually do a ceremony at a specific place on the site of Brimham Rocks, and the place was called Blacksmith Anvil. And like we were like, oh, blacksmith anvil is what you need to actually build a sword. And then the Merlins are connected to King Arthur. So we were like psyched about, okay, let's do a ceremony there. And one thing we did actually before every ceremony is we use sage to clean our energy. So this is something that's in our tradition in North America, in native tradition, using sage to purify your energy before ceremonies. And I started channeling the Druids at that specific place, and we were asked to sit in a triangle formation to do that ceremony. So I channeled the Druids, and they actually started making us doing internal alchemy. So they asked us to connect our hearts and form the triangle shape. And then when the energy was connected together, they asked us to basically imagine an orb of light in the middle of the triangle formation, and to open the portal in between the earth and the heavens, then opening that portal and imagining that, like in Qigong, what we do, imagining that life force that was coming in that orb and increasing the potential of energy. And then after that, they asked us to connect our art to that orb, also to send energy into it, but also to receive energy from it. And prior to that, we also connected to Earth and Heaven also. So we were already connected, already establishing that portal inside of us, being nurtured by Father Sky and Mother Earth, and then connecting together and exchanging that energy together was kind of increasing our potential to work together. And the Druids said, this is what you are going to be doing on many different sites, is bringing back the sacred Trinity, the Holy Trinity, back on those sites. And this is the way you're going to open the portals there. So we knew that this was going to be part of the journey, and this is why we needed to be three.
Yeah, there's so much power in the triangle. There's just, Bashar speaks about this, and many others with the sacred geometry, right? You have the triangle, then you have the tetrahedron, right? If you put one point above, which connects you to heaven or to spirit, right?
Which is what we were creating there, the tetrahedron. This is what we created as a form when we did that.
Totally. No, I'm seeing it in my mind's eye, and I'm just like, wow, this is like, I'm having the visual just listening to you describe it, Fantastic. So, is there anything you might share with the viewers of how you got inspired to do this, or how they could be inspired to step into these kinds of expansions of the roles that we're playing here on Earth?
Yeah, that's a great question, Thomas. That is actually a great question. And on that, I would speak about my experience and the experience that I'm seeing from people who are living the same type of experiences that I'm living now. And for me, it's all about opening our hearts, and it's all about reharmonizing the different parts of us that are polarized and that are creating lots of tension. And a lot of that is starting from our childhood. So going and fix our childhood trauma, our childhood issue. For me, parts work really spoke to me. So I started doing parts work in 2021 and done it extensively. And the more I was doing it, the lighter I was feeling inside of myself, the less reactive I was, the less polarized I was, the more my heart was opening and trusting the universe. and doing this internal alchemy of opening my heart using different types of technique, going from medical qigong to ancestral First Nation, different types of rituals. Doing ceremonies is one way to really open up, doing like full moon ceremonies, equinox, solstice ceremonies, like our ancestors used to do. These are portals that can really open up in a big way. I personally found that connecting with my heart and focusing in the middle of my heart and breathing deeply in a space of Wuji, in a space of stillness, and just bringing my attention there and breathing and relaxing within that space is actually how I'm receiving the best guidance. This is how I'm being contacted by my ancestors, by other types of consciousness out there. And the more I do that, the more I become one with everything. So this is more of a practice, sitting practice or standing practice if we refer to Qigong, but there's also the connection with nature. We've talked about that on other episodes, but connecting with nature and connecting with nature like we were kids, you know, connecting deeply with the magic of nature, the animals, the insects, the trees, the plants, the flowers, and really let herself be in awe. Let herself be like just in such um, reverence to nature. So this for me has been really powerful. Walking in the wood, walking bare feet, grounding yourself, that kind of stuff will really help to remove the turbid energy, remove the distortion inside the body, and remember more of who we are as human beings, because the body is our vehicle to our divinity.
Yes.
Really, it's within the body. People think like they need to go up there, like, and they need to open up and not feel their body anymore. But well, that's one way to do something. But if you really want to awaken to who you truly are, you need to nurture your body, you need to ground yourself, and you need to actually befriend everything and love your body in such a way that is giving back to you.
Yes. No, I'm glad you brought that in. It reminds me of a channeling session I did a while back called Sacred Flesh, right? It was all about reconnecting to the body as a sacred vessel of the divine instead of the
Yes.
split that we've created. We're like, oh, the body and the earth is lower dimension. Oh, let me get into heaven. But, fighting against the body, which a lot of the religious traditions seem to teach, right? So just, reconnecting. It's all about the oneness and integrating and not splitting and separating and segregating. So, Jean-François, man, we've covered so much ground, and I feel like we got to do more episodes, right? Because we're kind of scratching the surface, but this is a good beginning into this foray of speaking more about sacred sites and sacred ceremonies. And I love how you brought it back to coming into your heart. I was listening recently to another channeler that I really like and respect, Sarah Landon, and she was sharing how everyone now is opening up to channeling, to the channeling state. It's no longer reserved for just a few famous people, right?
No.
It's we're starting to receive that guidance, and what you said, coming into the heart, taking some deep breaths and being in stillness, you become your own channel. I feel like that's so important for all of us now. And you will receive the exact and the perfect guidance for what you need on your path, because it's always going to be unique for you, right? So it's great to listen to the greats and be inspired. You're inspired by DiStefano. I'm inspired by Bashar, Sarah Landon, Seth, yada, yada, right? They're all out there, and it's great, but then tap into your own channel, right? Open that heart and really start receiving the unique guidance that's really keyed to your unique path. So let's leave people off on that beautiful, bright note of, reconnect to yourself, reconnect to your heart, use the channels that are out there, but use them to guide you back to more and more of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last thing I would say on that is when you're listening to a channeler like Bashar, like Seth, like tune to the energy. Don't listen only to the words. Tune into the energy because that energy is what's going to transform you. And this is how you're going to awaken to your own self and connect with your own higher self and the different elements that you could be channeling as a potential.
Yeah, it's a vibrational transmission for sure. So thanks so much for coming. We'll do this again for all the viewers out there. May this inspire you to step into more of your true, natural, radiant self. Step into your heart, step into your path. Thank you for joining us, and we will sign off and see you in the next episode.